It's always an exciting time whenever we get Brad Evans on here because we know March Madness is right around the corner. And nowadays, that's good when we talk with Brad Evans because Illinois is back in the tournament. Welcome in, Brad Evans, Bally Sports. Let's talk about your bracket big board because it's here, Brad. March is just around the corner. How you been, man?
Man, I've been busy. I got a lot going on, a little of this, a little of that, a little everything. I believe, Mr. Werner, I have last checked a dozen tickets open for tonight's college basketball action. And, we're doing this on a Wednesday, and it is one of the more scintillating, enticing, and irresistible weekday slates I have seen. And as a result, I'm going to squander my kids' college funds.
That just makes life interesting, though, right, Brad?
Yeah, I mean, fly by the seat of your pants. I mean, why? I mean, you only live once, Werner. So, if I want to fire off, a hot and spicy ticket on Mountain West Conference play, I'm going to fire off a hot and spicy ticket on my Wyoming Cowboys
Oh, yours.
against Colorado State.
Your Cowboys. Well, Brad, you're one of my go-to bracketologists. I know this has always been a lifelong passion of yours. Was it the USA Today used to pick up the guide? Was that what it was?
Yeah. So going back in the day, and this is going to date me. I'm nearly a 44-year-old ancient man, getting gray in all the wrong places. And I could tell you this, the old school, newspapers, kids. I know they're kind of a thing of the past of, tangible objects. I used to go to the Bigfoot at the corner of Mattis and John Street on my way to Centennial High School, where I'm a graduate of. And right the day after Selection Sunday, they always had that extra pullout section that they had, that bonus section, which had these little team capsules in there, the strengths and weaknesses, all the rosters, fun facts about the university where it was located, the student, population, all that stuff. And I would just geek out. I would memorize it. Loved every single second of it. And, help me fill out my brackets. And here I am living a degenerate life covering sports betting, bracketology, fantasy sports for a living. And somebody actually pays me to do it. So thank you, USA Today,
Well, I
for
know this.
creating the monster that is me.
I know this is such a labor of love, your bracket big board. So take me through for people that just think, hey, you guys just throw this together. There's not a lot of thought to it. We know that's not the case, Brad. So what goes into how you put together each bracket big board?
Yeah, look, it's for me, it's an arduous process behind the scenes, but I'm not gonna, bog everybody down and bore them with semantics and technology and some of the pitfalls that are involved in it. But every night, presents new opportunities for teams. Every night adds another piece of the puzzle. Every night also complicates matters in trying to decipher the strengths, the weaknesses of how things are going to be viewed from the selection committee lens, right? Because that's ultimately what we're trying to do. We're trying to read the minds of those members of the committee as they are going through the process, looking at all the particular ingredients that go into the cake to figure out what seed line team A lands on or team B lands on. So, I'm going in, I'm watching as much basketball as I possibly can, which I've done anyway since November because I'm betting on practically everything. So I'm juggling the NFL season along with the early action college basketball. And what I like to see is the evolution of teams and how they develop over the course of the season. This time of year, it's really an accumulation of information from all the advanced analytics sites that are out there, whether it's KenPom, whether it's Bart Torvik, whether it's Haslametrics, whether it's Sagarin, along with the net rankings that are out there, the quadrants, the wins and losses there, where the good wins, where the bad losses on the resume, what's the strength of schedule. Every night it changes because there is another piece of the equation that gets, baked in. And then you just kind of adjust on the fly based on how the resumes are looking through the eye test. And, it's not what have you done for me lately? Don't cue the
Nice
jam.
80s reference there.
Yeah, well, if I had a jacket with major shoulder pads, I could really do it justice with the Janet moves, side to side from, back in the Dizzy. So it's not so much that, it has everything to do with the full body of work. And, that's something that the committee has harped upon time and time again. And I think that's something that the casual fan gets lost in. They get drunk off recency bias. And when in fact, that has little to do with where a team is going to be placed. So every night is a lovable slog, is how I would describe it. The tequila is flowing. It may lubricate the juices in my brain to properly seed teams, in my estimation. But every day they're shifting about all the way through Selection Sunday and really all the way up until like the last 5 minutes before that Selection Sunday show on CBS.
So, Brad, how much nowadays is basically just put these numbers into my algorithm, whether it's you, the committee, and how much is eye test, some of those narratives you're talking about, like with Illinois is an interesting case, right? Because
Yeah.
Kofi missing games. What do you think is the split? Like, do you have a percentage split of what is the metrics, what is the eye test?
Well, I think the metrics are almost everything.
Yeah.
I would say it's 80-20. And you hear these cliche lines from announcers that are, covering a team. Let's say it's, I don't know, like Murray State. Okay. Murray State is playing Belmont tomorrow. And, the game of the year of the OVC, huge one, right? And you're going to be watching that game as, whoever's calling it, probably for ESPN Plus or wherever it's going to air. And that announcer inevitably is going to say, man, by the eye test, this Racers team, they are dancing. They are dancing, America. It doesn't matter what they do in the OVC tournament. It doesn't matter what they really do at the end of this game. They deserve a spot as an at-large team in the NCAA tournament field. That means nothing. It's a bunch of poppycock hogwash, a smoldering pile of it, a giant one at that. And as a result, you have to look at the bare bones. You got to look at the nitty gritty. What is the overall resume telling you? What are the metrics telling you? Well, it's telling you that Murray State has played a 200 plus strength of schedule. That's not good. It's telling you that they have two, net quadrant one wins, which are very encouraging. So that's a plus. They got the lopsided record. Conference record is meaningless, completely meaningless. Whether you're in a mid-major or Power Five, it doesn't matter. Toss the conference record out the window right now. You have to strip it down bit by bit. Yeah, you have the eye test in front of you, and, by the bounce of the ball and their production on the court, visually, you might say, yeah, they should go dancing. But ultimately, the metrics are going to tell a very different and more poignant story and will ultimately point the selection committee member when that team card slides across the screen and they see it, and it's all color-coded and, rainbows. Oh, pretty colors. And it will determine whether or not that team is in or out in the end. So 80-20, I think, is a fair estimation of metrics versus eye test.
Well, Brad Evans, the committee did its mock selection, which I think is a good thing, just to show. Maybe they should do that every week, just like they do college football playoff, be ratings bonanza. But right now, they have Illinois as a 3 seed, and there's still a lot left to play. 3 quad one games in the regular season, could have as many as 3 in the Big Ten tournament, at least 1. What are the range of outcomes we're looking at for Illinois right now?
Yeah, Illinois is a really interesting case because, the advanced analytics, they've been fairly consistent here these last couple of weeks. I mean, they've been hovering around, in the net anywhere between 10 to 15 or within that 10 to 20 range. And really what the net is it's almost a mirror image measurement of what KenPom is or Bart Torvik is. They're all very similar in lining up. And, these are all key pieces to the puzzle for the selection committee when they're viewing it. And you got to remember, too, the net, folks, is a sorting tool. In its individual form, it bears as much weight as a KenPom ranking or a Bart Torvik ranking. And the committee does use those when, slicing and dicing a profile of a particular team. So, again, these are all ingredients that go into the cake. And you're right. I mean, Illinois has got ample opportunity to bolster the bottom line with those quadrant ones. And if they were to secure the win, let's say, 3 of the last 4 at home. So you got some prime opportunities there. Penn State can only hurt you, can't really help you, right? Ohio State, a quadrant one opportunity at Michigan. And, oh, man, come on, Kevin Warren, you couldn't, extend that suspension of Diabate for another game? Come on, bro. He couldn't do us that solid 1 game, not 2. Anyway, we're going to get him back, or Michigan will get him back, and we're going to have to go toe-to-toe against a fairly full force. And I think going from Juwan Howard to Phil Martelli could be an upgrade, honestly, for Michigan strategically, given his background overall. So that game is going to be a war. And then home against Iowa, I think it's going to be an absolute war as well, because the Hawkeyes are playing outstanding basketball, killing Michigan State last night. A game Sparty wasn't even competitive in. So let's say Illinois wins out, theoretically here in the regular season. And, you're at 26 wins overall. You're going to have ample quadrant one wins, double figures more than likely. Sometimes like Rutgers, they're shifting constantly, whether it's a quadrant one or not. Some of these other teams, Northwestern, another one of those that's shifting constantly because they're right there at the cusp of the top 75 in the net. They're going to have an argument for a 2 seed. And I think it's a low percentage. So I don't want to get, Illini Nation all jazzed up about this, but there is a small percentage chance. Let's say Illinois wins out, runs a rough shot through the Big Ten tournament. Now, there's other variables at play here in some of these other leagues and conference tournaments, of course, but it's not out of the realm of possibility that Illinois lands in the 1 line again. So that's best case scenario, right? I think ultimately they're going to be anywhere between a 2 and a 4. And I think the worst case scenario is probably a 5. Right. Just spitballing here off the top of my head. And that would be something like a colossal collapse of, losing maybe all 4 games, maybe getting another, black eye on the resume, losing to Penn State at home when, deem sort of a description there, stumbling in their first game of the Big Ten tournament against maybe Penn State again, which is shaping up to be a possibility. That's a worst case scenario here is you get that 5-12 draw that nobody wants. Yeah. But ultimately, I think they're going to be on the 2-3 line when the dust settles come Selection Sunday.
It's obviously been an interesting journey with this team, Brad. Feels like we haven't seen them full strength, and we're still talking about them as a 2 through 4 seed, which says a lot about Brad Underwood and this team. What do you think of this team once they enter March Madness or just coming down the stretch here?
Well, let me give you perspectives from a couple of people I greatly respect in the industry. Jeff Goodman is a really good friend of mine, and Jeff and I go way back, and him and Rob Dosser do a tremendous job for the Field of 68 podcast network. I think Deion Thomas has got a podcast with them within that network, if I'm not mistaken. So shout out to the Field of 68 and Dosser and Goodman. So I have this television show that I do up in the United Center at Stadium Sports, and it's called Live on the Line. It's a sports betting show. Check it out. Bally Sports RSNs. Watch stadium.com Monday through Friday from 11 to noon Central Time, and it replays like a billion times across those channels throughout the day. And I brought Dosser on the show. It might have been 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago. And I said, Rob, what team that is at 15-1 odds or lower, so worse odds, has the best shot to cut down the nets? Unsolicited, unprompted. I did not slip him any money, America. All right. He said Illinois. And then I brought Goodman on like 5 days later, asked him the exact same question. What did he say? Illinois. I talked to Doug Gottlieb when I was at Radio Row at the Super Bowl. Asked him the same thing. He said, Illinois. I mean, it's crazy on the national scene right now. Some people that know basketball inside and out, and I know everybody's got their own personal opinions about him, but they know the game. And they are all unanimously saying Illinois has got the goods because they have the balance. They defend their butts off. And it all boils down to what version of Andre Curbelo are we going to get, right? And the other thing I think is a critical factor is, we've seen some of these shooting slumps at the guard position, some of the perimeter players that are out there. Now, Jacob Grandison was out of his damn mind, out of his mind against Michigan State. You're going to need him or Alfonso Plummer. You know what Trent's going to do. He's probably going to bring at least 15 points every single night. But you need one of those ancillary players to step up. Maybe it's RJ Melendez. Maybe Luke Goody gets healthy and he comes in and gets like 10 points out of nowhere. You're going to have that X factor to be that consistent third scorer alongside Trent and Kofi. And if you're getting that, knowing that Illinois is going to defend tenaciously, has adequate depth, I mean, they can make a deep run, man. They're entirely capable of getting you and I to New Orleans. And if that happens, I'll meet you at the Bourbon House on Bourbon Street, and we're going to slam about a dozen Sazeracs, Werner.
I am game. You give me a call if that happens. Yeah, they need to get us to New Orleans. It'd be a heck of a trip. We know from last year, Brad, matchups are huge, right? Like we learned that last year if you didn't know it already. And if you're an Illini fan, what are you hoping for? Like, say they get the 2 or 3, right? That seems like 2, 3, or 4. What kind of team does Illinois not want to see as a 5, a 6, or a 7 seed?
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line here is, Kofi's just such a unique specimen of a human being and his skill set and what he brings to the table that there are very few teams that can match up well with him. Purdue's a bad matchup for Illinois because of Zach Edey.
That's why, Brad, I don't worry about the first round matchup like against a 13 or 14 because it's Kofi. I mean, you got Kofi. I don't worry about that.
No, I mean, he's such a beast in the middle. There are not enough horse tranquilizers in the world, I think, to try to contain and slow him down if you're one of those double-digit seeds, and you're going to have the daunting task to try to mitigate him. He's going to go out there and get probably 25 and 15 on you. You're going to have to deal with it. It's going to be, again, be some of those connective players like Frazier, like Grandison, like Plummer that you got to worry about more than anything else. I'm looking right now at, say, the 6 seed range that if Illinois were 3 would see in the round of 32. Arkansas is interesting. I think Arkansas could be problematic because of their length. And right now, their ability to play defense. Since the middle of January, nobody has played stauncher defense in all of college basketball than the Razorbacks on a points per possession basis allowed. I mean, these are just facts. And, got a critical win on the road last night against Florida. I think UConn could be problematic because of Sanogo. That would be a hell of a matchup. Him and Kofi Coburn going toe-to-toe there. But, I mean, UConn's erratic from outside. Illinois has been erratic at times here down the stretch from outside. That is a matchup. Maybe we get a rematch against Marquette, and I think it'll be a very different story the second time around. And then there's Michigan State. I have right now as the lowest number 6 seed, and that's tenuous at best. I mean, ultimately, the way that they're heading directionally, that could be a 7, 8, 9 seed when it's all said and done. So, yeah, Arkansas and UConn, I think could push Illinois to the brink. But if Curbelo steps up and resembles a player that we know that he's capable of, and is playing meaningful minutes, and he's playing controlled, and he's facilitating and distributing and, dropping in those teardrop shots, kissing off the glass repeatedly and gashing defenses and probing well, they could beat anybody. They could beat anybody in the country. They really can. So I think the teams you have to fear most if you're an Illinois fan, you're monsters. Gonzaga, because of their depth, because of their front court with Holmgren and Timmy. Another date with Purdue. Can Purdue beat us, 3 times in a row? Could be 4 times. Who knows? Depending upon what happens in the Big Ten tournament. Kentucky would be an issue.
Yes.
And I would say this. I would sell my soul to the devil, though. I've already done that years ago. So I guess a second soul if I have one. To see Kofi go against Oscar Tshiebwe. Oh, the storyline would be deep.
Oh, beautiful.
Oh, it'd be so deep in that game. And that would be must-see TV. And that would be a team that could be very problematic for Illinois because I think Kentucky is built similarly to the Illini in terms of what did they bring to the table along the perimeter, what they bring to the table defensively. That's a very, very good team for Coach Cal. It's probably going to be his best shot to win a title since he joined Kentucky. So, look, we're talking, rounds deep to meet some of these teams.
Yes, I agree with you. Auburn, Kentucky, Illinois in the same bracket. How about that? That'd be fun.
And I think Illinois would handle Auburn. I think Auburn right now, if they were to land on the 1 seed line, they would be the most vulnerable team that's out there. Now, if Purdue gets there, they would usurp Auburn in that description because, Boilers don't play like a defense. Right. I mean, historically bad, potentially for 1 seed, which is just curiosity.
Yeah, I just want to go through some Big Ten teams real quick with you before I let you go. Michigan State, you mentioned them. They're free falling right now. They've lost 5 of 6. They got Purdue coming up, Michigan, at Ohio State, then Maryland's their last game. What's their floor if this keeps going badly?
Probably 8-9 line. Honestly, maybe worst case scenario, 10 seed, but man, it is, there's some anemic, disgusting teams, getting right around the 9 seed. It's bad. For the most part. And I'm curious to see how the selection committee weighs teams like San Francisco and many of the Mountain West teams. Get my Cowboys, Wyoming. Absolutely love those guys. And they've got a handsome resume. But will they, give them the benefit of the doubt over a team like Michigan State in a power conference when you're splitting hairs with some of these resumes? I think Sparty will probably land on the 7 line. And my God, if that happens, they're going to be like the most popular 7-over-2 upset in the round of 32 in the history of brackets. And because there's a sucker born every minute and people just fall to the sex appeal and the brand name, and they're going to get their butts handed to them. I don't care who the 2 seed matchup is. The Spartans team, it is one of the most undisciplined Michigan State teams I've ever seen in the time as O'Era. They just shoot themselves in the foot constantly.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to pick them if they haven't been watching, but if people have been watching, I don't think they're going to pick them. Meanwhile, Iowa, red hot right now. I thought that Illinois-Iowa game at the end might be a nice finish for Illinois. That is going to be a tough one with the way Keegan Murray's playing. They finally seem to be catching up to that net ranking that's been so high all year. What's their – I mean, that's a dangerous team coming to the NCAA tournament, isn't it?
Yeah, well, and they are the most efficient offense, according to BartTorvik.com this month. And they are, I mean, by a mile on a points per possession basis. I mean, you saw it last night against Sparty. What would it be, by 26? Hung 86 on them. I mean, they raced out to a massive early lead. I mentioned Keegan Murray, Bohannon, still dropping bombs. I mean, and they're starting to defend better.
Yeah.
And that's always been the issue with them, right? Is, hey, sensational offensive execution. I think Fran runs some of the best sets in college basketball. Really they remind me of is like a Big Ten version of the Davidson Wildcats. A lot of floor spacing, great ball movement. They relish more of an up-tempo pace, and then they just splash from three repeatedly. And it's a beautiful brand of basketball. It really is. But ultimately for Iowa, it's going to come down, as it is for everybody else, draw. I think they are looking at right now probably a 7 seed, and you might say to yourself, "Wow, they're nationally ranked. Popularity polls mean nothing. They only have 2 quarter-1 wins. That's it. So the resume is rather meatless for Iowa, and they have some work to do to boost the bottom line. But if they are committed to playing defense, knowing how much they can fill up the cup, knowing they have maybe the best player in the country or best scorer in the country in Keegan Murray, yeah, they're a team that could be quite lethal in the postseason. No, I'm here to just get Mount Fran erupting. That's all I care about. I love watching him drop F-bombs and various 4-letter words. I mean, if you want to take your impressionable young children to a game and you're within earshot of Fran McCaffrey, it's going to be an educational moment. I will tell you that much right now. He's a lot of fun to watch. Him and Danny Hurley both are some of my best watches. The fact he was pumping up the crowd last night, Danny Hurley got tossed.
Unbelievable.
What the heck was that?
I'd like to see those Big East officials see Underwood and McCaffrey go at it for a game. Rutgers and Michigan, where you got them? What do they need to do to punch their tickets?
Well, I got them back to back right now. Latest version of the bracket, big board on that 11 seed line. And Rutgers is just a curious case.
It's the most interesting resume in a long time, I would imagine.
It's weird. It is a very strange resume. You got an 80 net. And, for some people, that's an automatic disqualifier. But again, the net in its sole form, just a sorting tool. You got the 3 black eyes in the quadrant 4 and quadrant 3 losses, but you got 6 quadrant 1 wins. 6. And, they go toe-to-toe tonight. And even though it's a thin team for Michigan with no Musa Diabate, we'll see what happens. I think Rutgers gets them, honestly, on the road tonight. As for the Wolverines, what really is buoying their resume is the strength of schedule, which is top 10 in the country. They got 3 quadrant 1s. They got the handsome net ranking at 34. They just got to basically play 500 ball, both of them, rest of the way, including the Big Ten tournament. And if that is the case, I think their names are going to be called when it's all said and done. I think the team that's probably on the thinnest ice right now is Indiana.
I wanted to ask you about them, Brad, because it feels like a couple of years ago, Indiana fans could have looked at Illinois and been like, they've missed 5 tournaments in a row or 6 tournaments in a row. I looked at it the other day. I'm like, they haven't made the tournament since 2016. Like that is unbelievable for a program like that, but they've lost 5 straight. And boy, I know they got Maryland and Minnesota on the schedule, but those wins don't do much for them, right? Purdue
can only hurt you.
Yeah, they don't. Purdue and Rutgers are the big games left on their schedule. Like, what do you think about their resume?
Yeah, and that Rutgers game could almost be a play-in, quite honestly, for both teams, pending the outcome of how Rutgers finishes in some of those other matchups. But, yeah, I mean, Indiana's in trouble. And one of my very best friends who lives in Champaign, Rob Tishner, shout out to you, Rob, diehard IU fan. And he was over for the Super Bowl, and he was asking me questions. Hey, what do you think of, Indiana? And I'm like, well, what do you think of Indiana? He goes, man, we're just so lukewarm. And he just sounded so dejected. And there was a piece of me that, I wanted to kind of give him a hug, but I didn't. I laughed and I said, yeah, turnabout's fair play, as an Illinois fan. Now, speaking objectively, as the esteemed college basketball reporter / bracketologist I am, Indiana's got work to do. But, yeah, they're heading in the wrong direction. And I'm just that Ohio State game was a backbreaker. You had him on the ropes, bro. You had him on the ropes. And he couldn't, levy the knockout punch. And here's the killer in this, Jeremy. And here's the gambler in me. I might have had a ticket on Indiana. at plus, I think it was plus 5.5. How do you not cover it overtime?
I'll lose by
How
11.
do you not cover it? You lose. What did you lose by 11, 13? What the heck, man? Come on, Woodson, talk your boys up.
All right, Brad, before I let you go, which of the Big Ten's teams, like obviously it's matchup based, right? But who do you feel good about going to the tournament? Because like Wisconsin, they keep winning, but do you feel good about them?
No, I don't.
Illinois, they haven't really put it together. Purdue, great offense. I can see them making a Final Four on the offense, but do they play good enough defense? Who do you like?
Yeah, I really don't like anybody. Iowa's got their own warts. And again, if they have one bad shooting night, they're going to get blown out. But that's a rarity for that team. Michigan could put, components and pieces together. We have Hunter Dickinson and his ability to beat you inside, outside, and Diabate's emergence. That's a team that would be a tough draw as a double-digit seed if they even make the dance. I think Rutgers and their ability to play defense are also going to be a tough matchup. And, Ron Harper Jr. Has been shooting the ball really well from outside, despite his injury, and Geo Baker. And Amourier has been money. I mean, he has emerged as one of the premier rim protectors and rim rockers in the Big Ten and really in the entirety of college basketball. I just go back to Illinois. And again, it just kind of, maybe it's seeping in, my colleagues in the industry saying, well, Illinois got all the ingredients, man.
It's
they got all the
right?
pieces.
It's balance.
Right.
Yeah, they got balance.
It's balance. And all they got to do is gel in time. And, I was telling my wife this. It's just like, February was going to be such a critical month for this team because of, how few minutes that Kofi and Curbelo had played on the floor entering the month together at the same time, that if they were able to get enough playing time together, the pick and roll is going to be devastating. And I still think Illinois has got the best shot to go deepest in the NCAA tournament. I really do. I just hope we don't see Kentucky until like the Final Four.
Well, Brad Evans, Bally Sports, follow him at Noisy Huevos on Twitter. Brad, hopefully we can catch up around Selection Sunday, man, and break down the big board, but we'll stay tuned to you, man. Yeah,
and you know what? If we do that, I will be coming to you live from Las Vegas at the Mandalay Bay Casino. So
don't work too hard.
Well, you got to hit me before noon, gotcha. Werner, because the beverages will likely be flowing in preparation. I got to build up the liver and the tolerance ahead of the first day's action, which tips at like 9:15 a.m. Pacific time. It's the greatest experience. If you've never been to Vegas for the NCAA tournament, you haven't lived.
Well, I haven't lived yet. That needs to be on one of my bucket lists. But maybe this year I'll actually be covering an NCAA tournament game, Brad. So I haven't done that off my list quite yet. So, Brad Evans, thank you, buddy.
Appreciate it, my man.